This program is brought to you by the Zach Ross Foundation, a philanthropic organization with a focus on poverty, education, mental health, human rights, and cultural exchange. Hosted at the Brennan School of Business with Dominican University, we present to you a lecture on international business. We hope you enjoy. Your papers, your international business journals, I read them all. They were really good, a lot of insight, so keep up the good work. Try to get at least full page in, I have to say. But for the most part, I was pretty impressed. Your discussions as well, too. I know someone mentioned that there wasn't able to really reply to anyone this week for the discussions, just because of the questioning. It was kind of a closing question. Yeah. So that's fine, as long as you make the initial discussion. So today we're going to talk about kind of a continuation from last week, pretty much economic development. So it coincides with the political economy around the world. So, like we always do at this time, we get into groups. We're going to work on the question up here. I have for you. So we do 3 or 4 groups. We'll do 4. Are you guys able to see this question up here? Did anyone read the chapter? Do you guys see the question?
How
Do you want me to
does
read that?
shift towards deregulating markets and rooting civil rights encourage economic, what is that, development?
How might a shift toward deregulating markets and broadening civil rights encourage economic development, particularly sub-Saharan Africa or just in general? So kind of continuation from last week, when governments deregulate markets. How does it help the economic development of the country? And also civil rights deals with property rights. So in terms of property rights, think of intellectual property, things that companies want to hold on to, assets, real estate, inventions, patents, things of that nature. So focus on just primarily sub-Saharan Africa because that's like really the last region, large region on Earth that has really grown in the last 10 years, I have to say. And just in general, too. See what you guys come up with. And if there's any questions or you're confused about something, yes. Okay, so if you're confused about what deregulating markets is, think how we said there's democracies, there's totalitarian governments, there was communism, there's socialism. think of different types of political environments in countries. And when those countries start to open up, they start to go to privatization of companies, right? So they start the government stops holding on to assets to gas stations and oil and everything else, education systems and healthcare and stuff like that. Once everything opened up to the entrepreneur, to the individuals like us, how does that help the total economic development of the country? What does that do? And just free form. I mean, don't think too hard about it. It's not an engineering question. Just
Well, like, we think of like confidentiality thing that regulate market, internet, so like, basically the government like process like they regulate how by regulate cause a lot of
like you're opening up the opportunity to make money.
Depends on the company that's trying to like, it's like let's say Google, like Google was it? Like Google's one of the providers. I'm come on board. Like they're progressive. They want to like they want us to do it for everybody. For Comcast and like AT&T, they have like mobile mindsets. Like
They are in charge of government and individuals are in charge of the market. And then democracy, like we're in charge of how the market goes. Goods and services.
which are those executive summaries.
So it's like stuff like that. By changing how the market is operated, how is that?
More direct. Because if it's you, if it's your voice in an executive summary.
Giving more people the opportunity.
Exactly, like we turn to like it's me and one other guy. We're the whole part of the
Contribute to us.
This is what you do. Here's
Yeah.
candle.
I guess people just even like so and everybody now can have their own businesses and everything.
I know, oh yeah, I know.
You need like a refresher.
It's a real lot.
When we have like system basically where
Have you been doing any?
Yeah,
so broadening the work.
creates an open system. Basically, yeah, just like it kind of creates an open system for creativity.
I actually for both. All I can do is also try and just subset that.
Yeah.
Like our seminars are.
Oh, those ones for like. Yeah.
I mean, what you said.
Right, so like let's say for example, we brought in our rights to and we open up the market, like what does that kind of help? Because we started, I don't know, like What's the name I go against? Great rights for like health, but right now we don't have rights to it. We get penalties if we don't have it.
It's absolutely crazy how like
Yeah, it's
you need to have
so you're kind of like
how a university degree to have balance. Like if you're under like if you're like 16, 17, they won't hire you.
yeah, right, like there's no other people that I mean, they're,
When you were calling Poland, your mom told them that you worked at a bank.
Because I find it my mom's cousin.
Just to work out. Yeah, I mean like more like in general.
I was 19. I started.
But that just shows like the lack of development. Like they don't trust the markets really not generations.
Is everyone done, or come up with enough ideas? Maybe, some more time?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I tell you, be creative, don't overthink things. I mean, this is just in general life, when you start to be too critical, then you find yourself not really coming up with ideas. Sometimes it's common sense. Also, remember too, guys, you know, business is, I think, personally, my opinion, 85% psychology, you know. So I always think of human behavior. Just ask yourself, hey, what are the humans doing in that situation? What are they doing in that country? How do they live in that country? What's important to them there? And then you can kind of gain a lot of insight just from that, you know. Who's done? So I can use their marker. Guys, so think in terms of a class like this, international businesses, what are you really learning? You're learning to kind of look at a macro point of view instead of a micro point of view of everything. You know, other classes may focus just on one particular industry, one particular market, one particular sector, one particular organization. But this is something to think of self in the United Nations. On an economic council or forum or global economist or something. So where you start to see just all the movers and shakers and what things are going on. So politics is very important, but global politics, you know, looking at what's happening on the whole. So actually I think this is real important stuff because if you can see from the outset what the world is doing and what different countries are doing, managing corporation if you could truly understand this stuff, just change your frame of mind, managing a small company would be a lot more easy. You get what I'm saying? Because then you said you see the behavior of not only large swaths of people, but looking at just small groups in the organization would be like, okay, I know how to change that. I can get an idea of what they're doing and where they're going. So international business is highly important because, hey, we're here. This is globalization. It's not going to change. This is going quick. Things are changing every day. By the time you graduate, well, I know some of you are seniors, but for others, things may look completely different in this country, you know, and around the world. So it's really just about adapting, adaptation, looking at change, how to predict change, how to affect change, how to create change. And once again, just observing behavior of lots of people. So what did you guys come up with? We'll group by group. What are some of the things you guys came up with?
So we had two sides, we had a good side and a bad side. On our good side, we had more innovation, more opportunity and growth.
So more innovation,
Yes.
opportunity.
Growth. And then more investment in the companies that supplies civil rights. Or support.
More investments for the corporations that are helping
Yeah.
achieve civil rights. What you come up with for bad?
It
What's
said
bad
that
about it?
hurt the economy due to former monopolies.
Forming monopolies.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all we could come up with.
So you think that monopolies can form during the transition phase of economic development?
Yeah.
Because only be a few movers and shakers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you guys have a good bad list or just kind of?
No, we just went down.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had basically all good. We started with it being a lot less limited, like people could actually protect their ideas. You know, once you deregulate a market, entrepreneurs could actually become entrepreneurs and start having patents protecting ideas without someone stealing it. You have easier access to resources to start a business and to make products. You have potential for riskier investments and more potential for individuals. There's also a lot more opportunities for younger people if you increase the labor force. And then increasing the labor force in general for civil rights.
Yeah, I mean, that one's really important. Think about this here in this country. Let's say that there are groups of individuals or groups of people who are marginalized, who are stigmatized, who are ostracized in some way, shape, or form, and how that affects them not helping or contributing to our total economic outlook. So democratization increases economic development in a way, because you're allowing people to participate, right? You're being able to participate, whereas before they were shunned away for whatever reason. Let's say age was a factor, sexual orientation, race, ethnic groups, things of that nature. So yeah, then that increases the labor force overall, and that's better for everyone. So I don't get why here in this country we're still kind of dealing with so many people who are marginalized, you know. It's like, wow, if everybody was able to start businesses and contribute, we'd be a lot better off. But I do know why, but we'll talk about that another time. Group 3, what'd you get?
We said it would give more people the opportunity to contribute to the economy. And there would be more small businesses.
More entrepreneurship. Is that it?
Yeah.
Anything bad that you can think of?
No, we were just thinking of economic development, which I feel like
Just
is usually
growth.
positive. Yeah, you'd want it to be positive.
Entrepreneurship, I think, is the most important. I mean, at some point, all companies were entrepreneurs. They're CEOs, they were founders, whoever. So without them, we would not have companies that we exist today. So that's the most important thing. Group four?
So we said that there'd be more entrepreneurs and there'd also be a greater change in supply and demand and in what products people are gonna start wanting. There's gonna be more equal opportunity for everyone to start businesses if they want. It's gonna create an open-minded economic system that will really enhance individualism. And then we think that there'd be more competition and opportunity for global business.
So more competition overall as a country.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that before, that individualism, is it bad, is it good? It's a matter of perspective. These are all good, very good. And they all come back deriving pretty much from the political systems within a country, basically how those countries value certain things, how do they live. And we'll go through that right now. Someone here is from the former USSR, Eastern Europe? No? No, Eastern Europe. Or Poland? Poland. Close. Can I get those markers back? Before I forget. So who knows what GDP is? No. Yes, sir.
I was a facetious hand raise.
Oh, okay, you don't know what GDP is.
I know what it is.
Okay. Who knows what GDP is?
If no one has it.
Domestic product, isn't that like how much essentially adds into the economy throughout the year?
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty much within the system confines of that country. Total go ahead.
No, I said how much like it produces, like in a year's time.
Yeah, within the confines of the country. You're absolutely right. Yeah. How much it produces, in general, we measure average salaries or average household incomes based off that per capita. Who knows what gross national income is?
Annual income received by residents of the nation.
You're close. I mean, it deals with income. The thing is with gross national income, it also looks at foreign investments. So an individual's foreign investments, and it gets interest and dividends off those. Whereas GDP doesn't necessarily calculate that, right? Kind of stays within the confines of that country. Purchasing power parity. You guys ever heard of that before? Really? You never heard of that? Okay. Yeah, I would think like Peter Alonzi's class or a basket of goods or, what can you buy with a basket? Anyone care to give a go at what it is?
I mean, parity means like basically it equals. So like, I mean, like if you're saying like a basket of something, like maybe like 3 stones could be worth like some tape. I don't know, like there's
I
things
get what
that,
you're
yeah, they're like,
Yeah,
I don't know, like some things equal each other. Like,
yeah,
like they're worth. Yeah.
Is
Go
there
ahead.
adjustment?
okay. Adjustment of,
Adjustment like a dollar is not worth the same here as it is somewhere else in the world.
absolutely.
So you have to adjust for it, because the incomes don't really tell you anything. You have to see already what does that amount mean in that particular country.
Yeah. So I mean, to keep it without having a metric effect to it, right? Not like saying, hey, what do we divide it by? Normally it is divided by gross national income. You just kind of play off all three of them, divide and multiply by each one to get different factors of it. But basically, it's the capabilities and opportunities of what you could purchase elsewhere for goods, to keep it simple. So it's the country's capabilities and opportunities to purchase goods and services. But it can't, so the gross national income can't be misleading because it does not consider differences in the cost of living. So purchasing power parity considers cost of living. So it's an adjustment for the cost of living. What can you really buy there? You move to San Francisco, right? So you can pay San Francisco dollars, but the rent is $3,000 a month. You know, what is your purchasing power parity here? What can you really purchase there, you know? On paper, it looks great, but in actuality, you're talking about your capabilities and opportunities. Japan, Sweden, Switzerland, and the US have high gross national income, which is no surprise. China and India have low gross national incomes, but they're getting better. And the need to adjust GNI figures using purchasing power parity. So here's some economic data for some of these select countries: Brazil, China, Germany, India, Japan, Nigeria, and so on. Here's their gross national income per capita. Brazil's 11,690. Let's go down to the United States. $53,470. Purchasing power parity, it's a little bit more than that. GDP growth, relative to some of these, we're kind of on the low end. So it shows that the US is slowing down somewhat, and that these are emerging economies. All right, China, 10.2 growth, Brazil, 3.8. Nigeria is really high. Nigeria now is the wealthiest country in Africa, so in terms of GDP. So there's a lot of opportunities, which means China is actually doing a lot of work in Nigeria. They're building up the airports, the roads, the infrastructures, hotels, hospitals, so on. So China, if you don't know, China plays ball with everyone. So that's why they're so successful. They don't let, when they deal with money cross borders, they don't let political boundaries get in, whereas we do.
What makes Nigeria so, what makes them?
So attractive as a
Yeah.
market. They have a large population, one of the largest populations in Africa. And they've always kind of had somewhat good economics in comparison to other sub-Saharan African neighbors. And their military stabilization. So there hasn't been that many revolutions as compared to everyone else. So their dollar's kind of maintained over the last 20 years.
They have like an attraction.
I just noticed that, look at the clock.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Someone hacked the clock. Someone hacked the clock so we can get out of here.
You're losing me.
And the size of the economy. This is 2013 data, so GDP in billions. You see here, see US top dog, China coming close. I mean, the thing is to consider here, when you look at China, you're thinking, hey, oh, China, China, China. The US has a population of 370 so million. China has a population of 1.6, right? So roughly 4, a little bit more than 4. So there's still a lot of people struggling in China too, you know? So it's not all glitz and glamour, as they said. Who else is wrong here? Poland. There we go.
I'm here.
So determinants. Official figures can also be misleading because they do not account for black economy transactions. What's a black economy?
Would Bitcoin fit into that?
Uh,
Would Bitcoin fit into that?
Yeah, so you think at some point cryptocurrency was black economy? There's a lot of purchasing on the dark web, military grade weapons, of illicit drugs, as well as a lot of bad stuff. Yes?
So like basically like illegal?
Illegal.
business?
Yeah, illegal or counterfeit. I think counterfeit illegal too, so.
Yeah.
Think of how that impacts the market, the amount of counterfeit items. So black economy is huge. So that should be taken into account as well too. But a lot of times you can't really get that information unless you get some official government, military information or something. In addition, gross national income and purchasing power parity data are static and do not consider economic growth rates. So that is huge in the factor for calculating that. So while China and India are currently categorized as being poor, they are growing more rapidly than many developed nations and are expected to become among the world's largest economies in the world. So some of this is abstract. So this guy here, Nobel Prize winner, Amartya Sen, argues economic development should be seen as a process of expanding the real freedoms that people experience. So in theory, economic development is free rights, right? You're expanding the rights of property, you're expanding the rights of entrepreneurship, you're expanding the rights on goods and trade. So it particularly deals with freedoms. And that's why you get the democratization of so many countries now, which has caused a lot of military issues. So you think now, you have to look at places like Libya, Tunisia, North Korea. You have to say, well, why are they in the spotlight? Right? They've been they've been doing the same stuff for quite a long time. Why are they such in the spotlight now? They're in the spotlight because there's a new government here in the US, right? And the new government has their own agenda for what economic development they want to do with North Korea. So always think about what the governments are really trying to do. You know? It always goes to economics. No matter what it says on paper, it's always money. Always. There's nothing else to it. So North Korea, being a totalitarian government, has maintained some stability for the last 30, 40 years. But now, I mean, the heat is really coming on, and you think it's coming on, you don't really know who it's coming from. It could be Russia, it could be China, it could be the US, right? You'll read more about the US because you live here, but we don't really know who's trying to get into North Korea to democratize, right? To democratize places like we did in Iraq, right? Which is very slow, and it's restructuring, but economic. You think of what's gonna happen now with Syria, you think of the implications of putting Jerusalem as the capital city recognized by the United States. All these different things are for economic purposes, right? So you think of this is just military. The military is government intervention. And they start, supposedly, you know, so we'll use the freedom tactic, right? Freedom is essentially connected to economics. So if you're a representative of politics, you're talking freedoms, you're really saying freedom of economy, right? Free market economy. Which betters people's lives in general. The removal of major impediments to freedoms like poverty, tyranny, and neglect of public facilities. This comes with economic development. The presence of basic health care and basic education. So economic development helps educate most of the population, puts them in the labor force. Also makes them live longer too, getting access to health care. So all these things are contained within the same system of developing countries. And this guy also claims that economic progress requires the democratization of political communities to give citizens a voice. So with democracies come votes. You have a representative democracy, you have representatives of your state or your district in Congress, whether you're a senator or a congressman, and then your president represents pretty much everyone. And that's what's happening now in other countries. But the shift and the change is not easy. Some people are traditionalists, nationalists, so you will see a lot of military things going on, you know, revolutions and small wars, small-scale wars. But always remember the driving force is economics. So the UN has adopted Mr. Sin's ideas to develop the Human Development Index, HDI, which is based on life expectancy at birth, educational attainment, and whether average incomes are sufficient to meet the basic needs of life in a country. And this all correlates to quality of life. So if if you're looking at a country, like, hey, I want to go there, I want to live there or something, you can look up the quality of life index, which is very correlated to this Human Development Index. What's the quality of life there? Are people intelligent? Do they have access to education? Do they have access to health care and expect to live long and produce, contribute to the labor force? And are their incomes sufficient to meet the basic needs? Are our incomes sufficient to meet our basic needs, or do we live check to check? Okay. So, once again, some of the information is abstract, right? Because we could look at China and India, and I said that China and India, there's still a lot of people not doing so well, right? But on paper, it looks like China and India are coming quick. And they are, but relative to the amount of people in that country, 1.3 billion, 1.7 billion people, there's still a lot of people that are struggling, you know, so. Same here. You live on the north side of Chicago, you see what it looks like? You drive to the south side of Chicago, you see what it looks like, right? If you had all those people contribute, if it was all one Chicago, right, then you would see less crime, more educated people, better incomes, better housing, more integration, right? So, I think as a microcosm, you can kind of look at your own city. Like, oh, why is crime so high here? You know, this is a great city. Why don't I go past 35th Street? My friends and my family tell me don't drive to the south side or something. Same here, these are just countries. And here's some more data on economic development. Pretty much the same thing. So how does political economy influence economic progress? What's the accurate time, you guys? Who has the time? 7. We'll take a break at 7:30. Oh, we'll watch a video after this. How does political economy influence economic progress? Well, innovation and entrepreneurship are the engines of long-run economic growth. So, entrepreneurs, 1, who's going to be an entrepreneur? 2, and everyone else is going to work for a corporation, right? So you can kind of use your class as an experiential thing to say, well, the number of entrepreneurs versus the number of people who just want to work. Just kind of what you see in these countries. Innovation includes new products, new processes, new organizations, new management practices, and new strategies. Do you guys feel like we're innovating here in the United States a lot? Is it going really quick? Has it slowed down at all?
I feel like it's been stagnant the past couple of years.
What do you think some of the reasons are?
The election.
Okay, politics, political economy, yes.
I feel like a good chunk of it is also like new technology that we don't know if we can even use yet, like self-driving cars. Are they going to be legal? How is that going to work? And that could be a big part of it also.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you guys think about that? You know, self-driving cars, robots replacing humans. What do you think about that? Is that good or bad?
I feel like companies are too focused on maximizing profits instead of like helping the greater good.
So in terms of globalization, is that bad? Like they're, you know,
I would say so.
okay. Anyone else? Yes.
I'd have to agree, like, companies who are like making these robots who are, they're built to do like certain things, but I feel like they're not taking into account that there are like bad things that could happen with like their software and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that they think about that until after the fact. Like, it's too late, like in the movies, like, oh, we probably should have done something to stop this. And it's like,
Yeah.
you could have, but you didn't.
Interesting, yeah.
With the prospect of globalization, I actually think that robots are kind of necessary in order to cater towards a more global world. You need something that's going to do things a little more efficiently than humans, and you still have humans watching over those things. So even though, like, you know, don't replace every single human, but in some factories where, like, there's a labor force that doesn't want to do those jobs, or
Yeah.
everyone wants to work in corporate jobs or something, sometimes robots would be beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes hand in hand, you know? Like, well, there are some things, some services in customer service when you call and you're talking to someone, it takes an hour to do something. I think I called Sprint the other day for my phone line and it took a ridiculous amount of time, I just hung up. Automated processes do help because they make things quicker. Country is growing, more people are here, therefore we need things to move faster than they did yesterday. But at the same time, are we really replacing the jobs? You know, because if it is profitability, the robots are purchased, you know, for a substantial discount overseas as opposed to being produced here, and then we're kicking out the employees that we have here, and those employees are just still spending. So their debt is increasing, they're not saving money, and they're working menial jobs. So, I don't know. I guess it goes hand in hand. Anybody else? Innovation. Stagnant? Yes.
I think so, like, I had to do a project on autonomous cars and everything recently, like, back last semester, it looked really good in my opinion. But looking at it now, I think it's still gonna be endangering lives. So I feel like that we might have the technology, but I don't think we are ready fully. I think there's
Do you
still-
think it's just a matter of a learning curve, like it's in beta now, right? So give it a decade or give it 5 years, things will improve? Or do you think it's just, all in all, this is a bad idea?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's just gonna develop bad habits if we have full autonomous cars for
Yeah.
people. Like that's gonna just be, that might be the case, and then it's also gonna be good on the other side of not having the stress of driving anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Think of that, yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully if it makes traffic better, who knows? In Chicago. Yes.
One thing I always thought about is like if we started like having self-driving cars all around, like every single person had their own self-driving car, maybe even like a family has 2, would the DMV and like certain government facilities go out of business? Like would they like stop operating? I mean, like would
doubt
people not
that.
need that anymore?
Yeah, I think they'll probably recreate a new department, you know? It'll still be something within the DMV, but they'll give it a new name and it focuses on something else. But it will be interesting to see how they do it.
Yeah.
I see the semi-trucks, Tesla's already got their prototype out, the automated, you know, semi-truck, so that's gonna be interesting.
yeah,
That's gonna put.
Tesla and GM's actually they're quarters away from having a fully autonomous car.
Yeah.
But their car right now just hit a motorcycle and killed the person. So now they're behind. Their launch date has been pushed back, and then Tesla just ran into a fire truck and completely destroyed the car. So now they're pushed back again. So I can see that their trucks are not going to be coming out as fast as they first said that.
It'll be a slow process, and of course, people will
Yeah.
die, you know.
And that's where I see like for innovation.
But more
that's
people are
gonna
probably
be-
dying at the hands of human beings.
Yeah.
Like with airplanes, normally when it goes down, it's a pilot here, right? Not the machine.
I feel like also based on how you were talking about human behavior, I feel like companies are trying to feel out what we would want, and I feel like we're also, because like even on Facebook I saw that a certain country created their first robot, and there was a lot of negative comments on it. So I feel like companies are just like, they don't
Yeah,
want to sell
human
something and
demands
then
and
nobody
needs.
buys it. Yeah.
Yeah, it just really depends on, do you guys want
Right.
driverless vehicles? You know? Do you? Who all wants driverless vehicles? 1, 2, 3. Anybody in the back? Driverless vehicles? You don't want to be chauffeured around? It's like an Uber, so you don't have to deal with a person.
We already went to school to learn how to drive. It's useless to us at this point.
I think driving is still a good activity, you know, 'cause it's still kind of somewhat of a enjoyable activity. So, you know, I think it'll be half and half, you know, half the population will love it. Who all here uses Uber and Lyft? Besides the people who drive everywhere. So were you skeptical of Uber and Lyft when they first kind of were rolling out? No? You were good? Having a stranger pick you up?
So weird.
Just having a stranger
How do I know
pick
that you don't have like a gun in your car? Not like a shot getting into your car, like.
My,
That's
my,
just
my mom is
true.
terrified. She won't use Uber, and she's gonna have to once my dad like is out of the house and using the car again.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm not going to. I'm like, all right, fine. You can walk to work for the next 10 miles.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not gonna get up at.
Has she used it before?
She's never used it.
Well, that's-
she reads all like the articles, and she's like, well, what if he pulls a gun on me? What if it's this? What if it's that? I'm like, no, it's not like you read on the the iPad. It's
Yeah.
It's like 1 in 1,000 chance that that'll happen.
yeah.
Once again, experience is the best teacher.
Right.
So if you don't have experience, you're just gonna speculate and you're gonna be afraid.
And I'm
Then
like,
you'll start to do it, you're like, okay.
I told her all
Stupid
my like
teacher.
stupid like conversations I've had with Uber drivers, and she's like, oh no, they're just creepy, they're scary. I'm like, you're not gonna die.
But how many jobs does this open up for people, you know? So you think of something like that, whereas before taxi drivers used to have cab medallions. Are you guys familiar with cab medallions?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they used to cost a lot of money. You know, sometimes they would sell them, you know, so sell them to someone else who's gonna be a driver, $150,000 or so. He had it for a long time. So it was an investment, but maybe you just got a horrible experience, you know, with cab drivers. Maybe, you know, people sometimes felt threatened, they felt like it was always foreign people speaking other languages that they didn't know, and they didn't feel really a connection with them, but now, you know, you don't know who you're gonna get. So overall, I think this is making the country more integrated, right? Because you got people from all walks of life picking you up, talking to you, communicating. So obviously it's gonna force you to engage with people who are different than you, right? Bring the country together. So I think it's somewhat of a positive thing overall. Many times that translates into economic development itself. Like we say, it's about ostracizing so many groups of people. We will watch a quick, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll watch a TED Talk video on economic development before we continue on. So let's take a break, come back at 7:35. 7:20, right? Time is it? 7:30.
like you know, there's some time, like there's a time I gave it for a couple of months and like, okay, I need that. And so, I got this like it was free God. It's close. And it's like it's free.
That might be great. My mom has the same issue, like she has like really gets milk and then she can't touch flour because it would make her like break down. Yeah, it's really
For me, it's just like one thing. So
So yeah, she's struggling to eat silk. I think that's one
Yeah.
that she has. And she said she would like some, but I tried it one time like just to try because I love bread. And I don't know, it just doesn't taste the same. Like it's not. There's something about like she was saying like the second thing tastes better.
no, but this was good. It's never like good, but you can't eat that. So you can't taste it.
Oh, like that means they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they know. Because of like with so many people that they tell.
So who all here is a full-time student? Everyone. So how many classes? 5? Full-time is what, 12 credit hours or more?
Yeah.
4 or more classes? So, is it difficult for you guys to work too? Finish up? Who's working full-time? You work full-time? What, more than 37 and a half hours?
I work
40 hours a week. Wow. So you are tired.
I'm used to it.
You work full-time?
Yeah.
How many hours?
I usually hit 39 every week.
So who's at a job that they think a degree would help them move up? You guys? At Chase? You think a degree would, or is it a requirement at Chase?
It's not that it would help.
It would help.
Yeah,
I
instead
mean,
of.
cause you can just get your Series 7 or 65 or
First, I have to
63.
become a banker, probably like an RB for about, relationship banker for about 2-3 years. And then I could move to see if I could be a financial advisor. But I heard that with a degree, I could kind of make that step a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Since I will learn a lot about those exams, I can maybe take those sooner.
Gotcha. You do?
Oh, for me? Yeah,
Cause you're trying to be a personal banker.
I mean, that's the first step towards it. I don't know exactly where I wanna go with Chase. I definitely for now, I definitely wanna stay with the company. It's really good. And this year especially, they're increasing everything.
Yeah, he was telling me guys got some
It's gonna
raises.
be rich.
Rich.
Okay, not yet. Maybe in a few years.
Who else? Who else where a degree would help them move up? Yes.
I work in a bank as well. I work for a Wintrust.
Okay.
I know that they're looking for graduates, so they're just picking up graduates like that.
Gotcha. And what do you do there?
I'm currently a bank teller. But I'm majoring in accounting, so I'm not really interested in banking.
Mm-hmm.
I do look to join your credit analyst if I get the opportunity, but I want to work at accounting firm.
Wintrust is moving up.
Yeah,
Last 10
they built
years.
their stadium. They're
Yeah,
acquiring.
right by the Marriott.
They got the Sox, the Cubs. I mean,
Yeah. I got a mortgage outlet. Who else? Degree is gonna help you move up. So then the real question is, why the degree?
Cause you don't wanna go anywhere else. Is it required?
Just in case, you're saying?
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
Cause like at my job, I've learned more within 6 months than I've learned here in my business classes. But it's like, I've also been thrown into like the old school way of learning, to where it's like you learn while doing it.
Yeah.
And you do your research on your own, and you kind of struggle on your own, but ask for help along the way. Someone's gonna help you. So, like I have more knowledge that way through seeing classes.
Yeah. I mean, of course, applying knowledge is better than conceptualizing knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
So, why do you agree? No one knows, just go conventional wisdom.
Mine is long enough.
Right, okay, so I'll say you're too far in. Do you feel, okay, so from day one to now, do you feel that you've learned a lot because of Dominican, because of school? You have? Yeah? You feel like you learn more outside the classroom?
Different things.
Yeah, it's different ways of applying it.
Yeah.
I feel like you definitely learn more about investments, and like for our job at least, you know, you kind of see that in the real world. You kind of go to class one day, go to work the next, and it's applied right away.
Yeah.
So it helps out a lot.
What about you? Why the degree? Do you need the degree to move up in your job? Yeah.
No, I just wanna, so I used to like do sales, so that's when I decided I wanted to do business. I don't know what I want to do with it yet, but
So you guys really think there's an economic benefit after you finish? There is? Yes.
I'd say connections. I'd say one of the real reasons why I came to Dominican specifically is because we have a really good study abroad program, and I know a lot of the professors in the fashion department are pretty close to each other and are close to what's going on in Chicago and the like nearby areas. So, like having those connections kind of can help you economically in the future, I guess.
So you build your network, right?
Yeah, building networks, making connections.
So what's the real purpose of the university, you think? As an institution? This is an institution just like a company, just like a government.
It's a business.
It's a business.
At the end of the day, it's also a business.
So there's an economic benefit for the school? So at the end of the day, if you calculate what you've paid so far into school, whether it's by student loans or you pay on or a grant or a scholarship or whatever, you think it'll translate to when you get out at some point? You'll get it back and more?
That's the whole.
Let me ask you, what's the psychological purpose for this institution? What's it trying to do to your behavior? Once again, it's an institution like a government, corporation, anything else. You got rules at your job, policies, procedures. You got rules here, you got rules in society. Yes?
Well, definitely, the way I see it, schools were first made just so kids wouldn't be misbehaving outside while their parents were at work. So that was, it kind of keeps your behavior in there. And if you look at, well, like personally, I think of the kids I went to high school with and those that aren't in school right now, and those that are, and there's like an enormous divide between those people and where they're at in their lives right now. Like, it just shows, like, it kind of reflects the type of person you're going to end up being.
Yeah, so schools, who else? Someone else?
No, I was agreeing, no, I agree.
That was,
I had my hand raised.
yes.
I was going to say that it kind of helps propel you into the adult world. Like it's supposed to give you the skills that you need to get into the like workplace or something like that. Like to prepare you to be an adult. So you spend these 4 years in this institution, and that should help you become like a better you, I guess.
Okay, so a better version of yourself. And so, what you said is basically controlling behavior. Someone else? Yes?
I feel like also many professors are able to motivate and then also inspire students, whereas maybe that's something they might not be able to get at home.
You're right. I mean, because how it should work, you think of you're in grade school, elementary school, and then you go to high school, right? Those are those people's jobs. They teach. They either took elementary education or secondary education when they went to college. That's their full-time job, right? Hopefully, your professors here have either worked in corporate, right, or worked in some field relative to what they're teaching, or they're still working, or they have their own businesses, So they can apply what they've learned too by experience rather than textbook and PowerPoint slides and stuff like that, right? I think that's the big difference with that inspirational, motivational factor from professors. Yes?
I feel like just adding on to like building skills, since it is like a smaller school compared to like a NIU or U of I, we work in teams here more. And I feel like jobs are looking for that, people that know how to work in teams.
How to work in teams.
Could you argue then athletes that have been athletes and let's say they've been on a sports team all their life, could you say that realistically they don't need to learn that aspect of teamwork, working in a team? That they've already developed that?
Yeah, I think athletes, I used, play basketball, football, whatever, but that's an innate trait, right? So it is, but I think they're great leaders, right? But relative to whatever field they're in or going in after sports, that can make a difference, So therefore, you see a lot of guys coming out of professional sports, bless you, who do take leadership positions. You think like Magic Johnson, him and his investment group bought the Los Angeles Dodgers, and other guys haven't, right? Some guys have been financially successful and can lead. But I definitely think it's a fantastic trait for leadership, you know what I mean? You know how to build a team and lead and function within a group. And some people still don't, leaving here, they may not have that. It's individualistic. Yes?
Also, I feel like students who both do sports and come to class, I feel like that also allows them to juggle more things at once, which also will help them in the future when they have a career.
Yeah, multitasking.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Because you learn in business, you say, hey, I want to go in business, right? It's such a general word, business. Hey, I want to go into business. What do you got to know? Well, you should know some economics, should know some accounting, should know some finance, just basic general things, right? You should know how to manage human beings. You should know how to market products and services so that you can have people come and purchase these things. And I would say maybe another one is like organizational development, like how to actually develop an organization, the structure, the design of it, how do you motivate people, how do you give them a title. We live in a title-inflated country in our society. Basically, you can motivate somebody by giving them a new title. Hey, we're moving you up, now you are executive marketing such and such, right? You get your cool business card, then you tell all your friends and your family, hey, they moved me up, I'm executive janitor. You get what I'm saying? Like, whatever you're doing, you can give it, you can motivate people, right? And that's what the point of all of this is that behavior. How do you dictate, control, manage, and structure behavior? Number one thing, you have to motivate people and you have to give them benefits to do something. And that's what school is. School is creating a system of motivating people to learn, right? A structured system, which means that you may come out being successful or you may not, depending on your personal characteristics. That's something totally different. Not everyone is equal. But for the most part, just like our society, we want to motivate people to work, motivate people to go out and purchase things to create a better economy, motivate people to start businesses. And this is the same thing what school does. So the point is to look at systems, right? School is a system, government's a system, your job is a system. observe the systems in place and say, hey, I understand what's really going on here. Now I can break it all down to see how I can make it more beneficial towards me. And I have to say, the conventional wisdom on most things may not lead to success. So when you look at system, any system, like I said, government, education, whatever the case may be, find the loopholes, because the loopholes are just a matter of information. Why are some people wealthy and some people aren't? The information. Now you said we got Google, we have all the information in the world. Not everyone's motivated to give the information. Too busy on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. You know what I'm saying? It depends on how you spend your time, the information. Get the information that can get you ahead. Conventional wisdom normally doesn't take you that far. So sometimes you have to be radical and think different, and do things that other people aren't doing. And that's what I'm saying is I learned through business and going to school and all of this schooling. I think once you get to a certain level, you start to, your mind starts to see that. You start to see everything as a system. You can look at a team and say, oh, I see the system in place here. You know what I mean? You're not focusing on one individual, but oh, I see what goes on here to make it successful. So actually with my PhD, it focuses on organizations and systems psychology. So looking at the psychology of institutions, of corporations, of governments, of cultures, because all of these are systems. All of these are systems that should be looked at to say, hey, how it operates here. How do they motivate people? How do they give benefits? How do they control the people? How do they manage? How do they dictate? And that's what international business really comes down to. We're looking at it from a very large, broad brush. So we'll watch I think the video's like 18 minutes, but it's a TED Talk. It should be good. So. Oh, by the way, Benjamin. So Benjamin Wolf, I think he will win for United States Congress. He wasn't able to be here because he's just way too busy with his campaign. His campaign managers has the flu. A lot of people have the flu right now. So we'll try to get him in a little later. But hopefully we can get in quite a few guest speakers to come in. Hey, on a side note, has anyone ever considered running for office or politics or politically ambitious? Is it bad? You think politics are bad? I mean, is it good? What's the benefit of politics, I guess, of being a politician? I think Congress, $200 grand a year. You only go a few sessions to DC. You have an office in DC. Keep an office here in your district. So, no? Yes?
I feel like the whole point of like politicians is they're supposed to like represent the people and hopefully make things better. So if they do that, then that's a good thing, but sometimes they don't.
Sometimes. Yes. I think very rarely systems. Right? Politics is a system. You get into your system, you're like, oh, I'm incorruptible. No one can corrupt me. I'm too ethical. I'm moral. I'm this and that. Just give it some time. You'll be playing ball. Because the system actually forces you to play ball. You know? So it's like you become the monster trying to defeat the monster in some regard. Yes?
I feel like from our perspective, as voters and people like that, I feel like politics has definitely become more of a joke to us, especially with the last election. That people kind of didn't expect it, and there were jokes all like Kanye's running for president, this person's running for president.
Oprah's running for president.
Yeah.
I'm like, why all the celebrities? Like, where's the Harvard scientists, the Harvard economists, Yale, Stanford, Dominicans? Where's all the smart people we have. We can only pick a rapper, an actor, a singer, like. Main thing, when it comes down to government, you think, oh, okay, why would we elect a certain president over another? Simple answer, economics. One person thinks that this guy's gonna help them out more in the next 4 years. The other person thinks that this person is not, you know. So Democrat, Republican, you know, the Republicans, generally speaking, right? Because I'm independent, so I'm neither. Republicans think more free market economy, less government intervention, smaller government, and you're gonna let us do what we wanna do. Let's do what we wanna do on Wall Street, all the financial sectors and trades and everything else. Democrats are, you know, more government intervention because you need a larger government to help those people that I told you about who don't have it so good like everyone else, the marginalized populations. So it really just depends on what side of the fence you're on. If you're wealthy and you don't care about what other people are doing, you may want a particular political party to win because you want things to be better for you economically. That's really what it comes down. It always comes down pretty much to economics. Either economics in social welfare programs are helping society, that is economics, or personal economics. It's gonna help my company get bigger, you know, it's gonna lessen my taxes, or all type of different things. So, once again, it's a theory. You either pick a certain economic theory and say, this guy I think is better than this guy. At the end of the day, you really only get two people to choose from, right? Maybe those two choices just weren't the best. 370 million people in the country, just these are the two that we have. I don't know, should be a lot more people running. And that's kind of what Barack Obama is doing with his foundation, is getting people to learn more about politics and work in politics so that they can understand the political economy, you know, how it all works, either help people or, you know, do things like that. But here's our
all your friends will see.
A very warm welcome indeed for Ernesto Sorori, please. Big hand, thank you.
Well, I have no slides. But I have a story to tell you. Everything I do and everything I do professionally, my life has been shaped by 7 years of work as a young man in Africa. From 1971 to 1977, I look young, but I'm not. I worked in Zambia, Kenya, Ivory Coast, Algeria, Somalia, in projects of technical cooperation with African countries. I worked for an Italian NGO, and every single project that we set up in Africa failed. And I was distraught. I thought, age 21, that we Italians were good people and we were doing good work in Africa. Instead, everything we touched, we killed. Our first project, talking about food and food systems, our first project, the one that has inspired my first book, Ripples from the Zambezi, was a project where we Italians decided to teach Zambian people how to grow food. So we arrived there with Italian seeds in southern Zambia, in this absolutely magnificent valley going down to the Zambezi River, and we taught the local people how to grow Italian tomatoes and zucchini. And of course the local people had absolutely no interest in doing that, so we paid them to come and work, and sometimes they would show up. And we were amazed that the local people in such fertile valley would not have any agriculture. And, but instead of asking them how come they were not growing anything, we simply said, thank God we're here. Just in the nick of time to save the Zambian people from starvation. And of course, everything in Africa grew beautifully, and we had these magnificent tomatoes. In Italy, a tomato would grow to this size, in Zambia, to this size. And we could not believe. And we were telling the Zambians, look how easy agriculture is. When the tomatoes were nice and ripe and red, overnight, some 200 hippos came out from the river and they ate everything. And we said to the Zambians, my God, the hippos! And the Zambia said, yes, that's why we have no agriculture here. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. I thought it was only us Italians blundering around Africa, but then I saw what the Americans were doing, what the English were doing, what the French were doing, and after seeing what they were doing, I became quite proud of our project in Zambia, because you see, at least we fed the hippos. You should see the rubbish. You should see the rubbish that we have bestowed on unsuspecting African people. You want to read the book? Read Dead Aid by Dambisa Moyo, Zambian woman economist. The book was published in 2009. We, Western donor country, have given the African continent $2 trillion American in the last 50 years. I'm not going to tell you the damage that the money has done. Just go and read her book. Read it from an African woman, the damage that we have done. We Western people are imperialist, colonialist missionaries. And there are only two ways we deal with people. We either patronize them or we are paternalistic. The two words come from the Latin root pater, which means father, but they mean two different things. Paternalistic, I treat anybody from a different culture as if they were my children. I love you so much. Patronizing, I treat everybody from another, culture as if they were my servants. That's why the white people in Africa are called Bwana, boss. I was given a slap in the face reading a book, Small is Beautiful, written by Schumacher, who said, above all in economic development, if people do not wish to be helped, leave them alone. This should be the first principle of aid. The first principle of aid is respect. This morning, the gentleman who opened this conference lay a stick on the floor and said, can you imagine a city that is not neocolonial? I decided when I was 27 years old to only respond to people. And I invented a system called enterprise facilitation, where you never initiate anything, you never motivate anybody, but you become a servant of the local passion, the servant of local people who have a dream to become a better person. So what you do, you shut up, you never arrive in a community with any ideas, and you sit with the local people. We don't work from offices. We meet at the cafe. We meet at the pub. We have zero infrastructure. And what we do, we become friends. And we find out what that person wants to do. What is more important, creativity or knowledge? The most important thing is passion. You can give somebody an idea. If that person doesn't want to do it, what are you going to do? So in our philosophy, the passion that the person has for her own growth is the most important thing. The passion that the man has for his own personal growth is the most important thing. And then we help them to go and find the knowledge, because nobody in the world can succeed alone. There was this wonderful presentation this morning, about this innovation center that has been set up. The idea that you need helpers, advisors, people who work with you. That's what we have discovered. We have discovered that the person with the idea may not have the knowledge, but the knowledge is available. So years and years ago, I had this idea, why don't we for once, instead of arriving in a community to tell people what to do, why don't for once listen to them, but not in community meetings? Let me tell you a secret. There is a problem with community meetings. Entrepreneurs never come. And they never tell you in a public meeting what they want to do with their own money, what opportunity they have identified. So planning has this blind spot. The smartest people in your community, you don't even know because they don't come to your public meetings. What we do, we work one-on-one. And to work one-on-one, you have to create a social infrastructure that doesn't exist. You have to create a new profession. The profession is the family doctor of enterprise, the family doctor of business who sits with you in your house, at your kitchen table, at the cafe, and helps you find the resources to transform your passion into a way to make a living. I started this as a tryout in Esperance in Western Australia. I was doing a PhD at the time, trying to go away from this patronizing bullshit that we arrive and tell you what to do. And so what I did in Esperance that first year was to just walk the streets. And in 3 days, I had my first client, and I helped this first guy who was smoking fish from a garage, was a Maori guy. And I helped him to sell to the restaurant in Perth, to get organized, and then the fisherman came to me to say, "You the guy who helped Maori, can you help us?" And I helped these 5 fishermen to work together and get this beautiful tuna, not to the cannery in Albany for 60 cents a kilo, but we find a way to take the fish for sushi to Japan for $15 a kilo. And the farmers came to talk to me, say, "Hey, you help them, can you help us?" In a year, I had 27 projects going on, and the government came to see me to say, "How can you do that? How can you do?" And I said, "I do something very, very, very difficult. I shut up and listen to them." So the government says, "Do it again." We've done it in 300 communities around the world. We have helped to start 40,000 businesses. There is a new generation of entrepreneurs who are dying of solitude in Christchurch. I want to tell you something. This is very, very serious. Peter Drucker, one of the greatest management consultants in history, died aged 96 a few years ago. Peter Drucker was a professor of philosophy before becoming involved in business. And this is what Peter Drucker says: planning is actually incompatible with an entrepreneurial society and economy. Planning is the kiss of death of entrepreneurship. So now you're rebuilding Christchurch without knowing what the smartest people in Christchurch want to do with their own money and their own energy. You have to learn how to get these people to come and talk to you. You have to offer them confidentiality, privacy. You have to be fantastic at helping them. And then they will come, and they will come in droves. In a community of 10,000 people, we get 200 clients. Can you imagine a community of 400,000 people, the intelligence and the passion? Which presentation have you uploaded the most this morning? Local, passionate people. That's who you have uploaded. So what I'm saying is that entrepreneurship is where it's at. We are at the end of the first industrial revolution, non-renewable fossil fuels, manufacturing, and all of a sudden we have systems which are not sustainable. The internal combustion engine is not sustainable. Freon way of maintaining things is not sustainable. What we have to look at is at how we feed, cure, educate, transport, communicate for 7 billion people in a sustainable way. The technologies do not exist to do that. Who is going to invent the technology for the green revolution? Universities, forget about it. Government, forget about it. Would be entrepreneurs, and they're doing it now. There's a lovely story that I read in a Futurist magazine many, many years ago. There was a group of experts who were invited to discuss the future of the city of New York in 1860. And in 1860, this group of people came together and they all speculated about what would happen to the city of New York in 100 years. And the conclusion was unanimous. The city of New York will not exist in 100 years. Why? Because they look at the curve and say, if the population keeps growing at this rate, to move the population of New York around, they would have needed 6 million horses. And the manure created by 6 million horses would be impossible to deal with. They were already drowning in manure. So 1860, they are seeing this dirty technology that is going to choke the life out of New York. So what happens in 40 years' time, in year 1900, in the United States of America, there were 1,001 car manufacturing companies. 1,001 was the idea of a funny different technology had absolutely taken over. And there were tiny, tiny little factories in backwaters, Dearborn, Michigan, Henry Ford. However, there is a secret to work with entrepreneurs. First, you have to offer them confidentiality, otherwise they don't come and talk to you. Then you have to offer them absolute dedicated, in passionate service to them. And then you have to tell them the truth about entrepreneurship. The smallest company, the biggest company, has to be capable of doing 3 things beautifully. The product that you want to sell has to be fantastic. You have to have fantastic marketing. And you have tremendous financial management. Guess what? We have never met a single human being in the world who can make it, sell it, and look after the money. Doesn't exist. This person has never been born. So what we have is, we've done the research, and we have looked at the 100 iconic companies of the world: Carnegie, Westinghouse, Edison, Ford, all the new companies, Google, Yahoo. There's only one thing that all the successful companies in the world have in common. Only one. None was started by one person. Now we teach entrepreneurship to 16 years old in Northumberland, and we start the class by giving them the first 2 pages of Richard Branson autobiography, and the task of the 16 years old is to underline in the first 2 pages of Richard Branson autobiography how many times Richard uses the word I, and how many times he uses the word we. Never the word I and the word we, 32 times. He wasn't alone when he started. Nobody started a company alone. No one. So we can create a community where we have facilitators sitting in cafes, in bars, in your beautiful new mall, the Container Mall. We have enterprise facilitators sitting there who come from a small business background and are your dedicated buddies, who will go to you what somebody did for this gentleman who talked about, this epic somebody who will say to you, what do you need? What can you do? Can you make it? Okay, can you sell it? Can you look after the money? Oh no, I cannot do this. Would you like me to find you somebody? We activate communities. We have groups of volunteers supporting the enterprise facilitator to help you to find resources and people. And we have discovered that the miracle of the intelligence of local people is such that you can change the culture and the economy of this community just by capturing the passion, the energy, and imagination of your own people. Thank you.
What do you guys think? What was the central message in that? Any thoughts on the video? Central message? Yes.
You need more than one person to be successful. You need for a business to be successful.
Going back to that system. You need to know how to create a team, how to manage the team, and so on. Yes?
Well, this kind of reminded me of like marketing versus sales, like thinking about the needs of entrepreneurs versus like trying to make things that they probably don't need, but just so you can make them or profit off of them from certain people.
The key word was listen, right? So if you want to work overseas, you want to be a manager overseas for, say, it's a domestic company who has operations overseas, what's going to make you an effective manager? You got to be able to listen to the people there, the culture there. It's not about, really espousing what your beliefs are. You have to listen and say, what do you truly need? Yes?
This kind of reminds me of, I actually read recently online that the CEO of Amazon, sometimes he'll have his employees and people under him come up with ideas that he thinks aren't good, but he won't get in the way. He said he believes in them and he goes with their ideas anyways, whether he thinks they're good or bad, and that's like what has helped him basically become so successful.
Yeah.
That kind of, if I can,
feedback.
yeah, that kind of goes along with, who's the CEO of Google?
Well, Sergey Brin and Larry Page started Google, but the CEO now is, I forget his, Eric Schmidt.
Eric Schmidt, okay, sure.
I think it's
he has people basically, like, they have a set amount of time that they can work in one day on their assigned projects, and then the rest of the day, they have to do whatever they want. They can do any project that they want that they feel is helpful to the company or is just completely random, and that's why that's how they come up with all of the actual innovations. Yeah.
This is what has happened with most tech companies. They look at conventional wisdom on how you be creative, on how you think of a new idea. Older companies just kind of do the same old stuff. There's one guy at the top, he makes all the decisions, it comes down the pyramid, and everyone executes, and if it fails, they probably get blamed for it. As opposed to now it's more an integrated approach, right? To where everyone's creates some sort of linear, right? Obviously you have structured managers over this, but you create more of a linear plane to where you're letting a lot more people have decision making in the process, right? Because everybody's unique. And everybody's may possibly think of something that you are not. No one has all of the answers or the most creative ideas. What else? You want to be an entrepreneur or manager or leader in a foreign country? What else are some of the facets that you can guess?
The big thing that I got out of it is kind of close to listen, but it's more like don't force things on people, because once you start forcing it,
Yeah.
that's when you kind of scare them away.
I mean, number one, you can't think you know it all, right? Yeah, I've never been to that country. You just saw it on YouTube, on television, on a documentary, or in textbooks. And you're going there and saying, oh, I know what you need. You're going to Africa saying, you guys need so much. You're like, no, we've been quite all right for thousands of years. We may need a little bit of assistance in the process, right? You're not coming and reinventing the wheel anywhere. You're just basically looking at the process involved and like, hey, I may be able to help streamline that process that you have, right? And I think that's, for Westerners, that's kind of most what we do. We look at foreign countries, we think we're the top dog and that we have the answers to execute over there. And we get there, we realize we got no idea what's going on, right? And sometimes when I was in Peru, and it really is a country by country basis, but when I was in Peru, Jefe is big, right? Same goes in Mexico, right? So people respect bosses. That's boss. We listen to the boss. So there's a particular hierarchy, which means that if you start promoting yourself as boss on your own, you might be the boss, especially if you're a foreigner. So you think of even international criminal organizations, you think of cartels, right? Who's the leaders? Normally the leader is someone who can look at the overall system and say, oh, I kind of see how this works. And I see what really is needed here, right? They listen to other people, they listen to what's going on. And not to use international criminal organizations as an example, but these people pretty much are CEOs of an illegal trade, an illegal market, an illegal corporation. Gangs are a corporation. They're a system in place to control behavior, dictate behavior, manipulate behavior, motivate people. Rankings, right? Give people titles. Well, you're a lieutenant now. You're this, you're a captain, you're this and that. Same with the mafia, right? Godfather, Capo, or Sicario, anything like that. What else? What are some of the characteristics that he was espousing about in terms of entrepreneurship overseas? I guess, being open-minded. You really got to ask yourself, how open-minded are you? Some people refuse to do business with people just because of cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, all types of different things. They're not very open-minded. They have a lot of restrictions. Those people traditionally don't go far, right? People who are even in tech companies see a much larger scale. You mentioned technology not being able to solve, for billions of people, but I think Facebook is something like that. Bless you. You think of Facebook, you think of a Google, right? Think of 3 billion people on Facebook, right? Zuckerberg wanted to put the internet over Africa so that people can have access. Why? So they can get on Facebook. They can market to them and influence them to look at particular news things or buy certain products, and they can make revenue off it and all these different things. So it's very possible now to affect billions of people who need it, just depending on how open-minded that you are. What else? Yes?
It's also about having like an open environment, how you said about the difference between meeting in an office and meeting like at the local restaurant or something like that. Just kind of
creating an environment, right?
Yeah.
Once again, it goes to, you gotta motivate people and give them benefits. What's the benefit? you have a cool job with cool perks, cool office space, cool environment. You like working there, you know? It's aesthetically pleasing. People there are pleasing. You're not gonna wanna leave. So definitely it's that comfort, right? You're creating comfort in people. Even if you meet someone overseas, you wanna create comfort. You wanna listen. If you listen to someone, you're like, oh, you respect my culture. You didn't come over here telling me about myself, you know? Just like someone coming to you and telling you about yourself. Like, what are you talking about? You're completely wrong. And this all comes with experience. You can't do it from a book. You have to go there. But the opportunity is open now. I mean, there's plane ticket away, you know? So your market is no longer, it just has to be the United States. You could go somewhere else and say, yeah, let's spend some time here because I did a little research. I think there possibly some demand here for something, right? And then you go listen to the local customs, people at the top, people at the bottom, and then you make particular decisions about whether you interact and do business there. So, yes?
Another thing is, like, I guess, helping one person can lead to helping more than one person. Like with the fisherman, he was talking about that. He started out helping like one fisherman, and then it was a bunch of fishermen there, so then it was 5, and then it moved on to the farmers, and he said that he had like 27 projects by the end of the year, so it just keeps expanding. If you just listen and help one person out.
Yeah. I mean, help is a big word. I mean,
That's some of the best word of mouth marketing, and you can't even buy it.
yeah.
It's free.
I mean, you can use all type of words, right? I assist, I help, I aid. And once again, that goes into the psychology, right? Things that influence us to buy something or make someone our friend or whatever the case may be. Significantly important. Anything else you guys can think of before we continue?
What about like him talking about his failure? When he first got there and his his first few projects that when he got there were failures.
Yeah.
He was learning from them, and I think there's like some psychology there because most people would just give up.
Yeah.
But it's pushing through that.
And you know, it's dry. Because even motivation is temporary. You work at a job, you might work there for a year. While you're motivated about getting a job, now you get out there and they're not treating you well, you didn't expect us, you know, to get paid so little, whatever, right? But drive is something permanent. Drive is long-term, which means an individual has to keep moving on and keep going and succeeding and building on. You're gonna always fail. I think if you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you don't expect fail, that means you don't like risk. You're risk averse, you know? You don't like risk, things are too risky. You may say, hey, I prefer having a consistent amount of pay and knowing how much I'm getting paid every week or bi-weekly. I know how many hours I'm gonna work, everything's structured, and hey, that's fine too, you know? But as an entrepreneur, you can't expect any of that. Because like you were saying, planning sometimes goes out the window. You know? You kind of have to plan as you go. You can't make 4-year projections so easily. As things change. Yes?
I think another characteristic he touched upon a lot to do with motivation and drive is passion. He spoke about like the person needs the passion to actually want to do something to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, you can even say passion is maybe a step up from drive. If you have the passion to do something, I mean, that's pretty powerful. Right? This is all abstract language, right? But it does mean something. There's different levels to these things. But kind of back to any system, school, another country, particular culture. How are you going to be successful overall? Right, you're going to observe the structure in place, system in place, and try to manage it the best you can. And the most important word, he said, for any entrepreneur, for any company, I don't care how great your idea is this word. sustainability. You're gonna make, you say, hey, I got the greatest idea, we did fantastic the first year. We made $3 million. And then your product fails the second year. Why? It wasn't sustainable.
It was a fad.
Yeah, it was a fad, it was a trend, it was something that was just coming and going. So, sustainability will always mean constant growth, which means that, okay, year one, we got 100 people. That's working for us. Year two, we got 1,000 people. Year three, we got 10,000.
This presentation was brought to you by the Zach Ross Foundation, a global philanthropic organization focusing on poverty, education, and mental health. We hope you've enjoyed.